everybody, and welcome to our World Water Day LiveChat for 2023. My name's Samantha, and I'm the National Communications Officer for Environmental Health Australia. During the live chat today, if you'd like to ask a question at any time, please comment below and we'll address all of the questions at the end. Now for a bit of background on World Water Day. The first World Water Day was observed in 1993, which makes this the 30-year anniversary. The aim of World Water Day is to highlight the importance of fresh water and raise awareness of the 2.2 billion people living without access to safe water. The theme this year is accelerating change to solve the sanitation crisis, and to speak about this, we're joined by Professor Anas Ghadouani. I am so sorry if I have mispronounced that last name. And Anas is the Professor of Environmental Engineering at the University of Western Australia. So welcome, Anas.
Oh, hello. Thank you for this introduction, and thank you for the invitation to what looks like a fun, chat today. So I note, actually I didn't know that it was the 30th. So I know that we are kind of young. In a sense, in celebrating and acknowledging the importance of water in our lives. But I think it's worth to reflect on, before, the 30 years. And, it's worth to reflect, especially in Australia, on the more than 80,000 years of stories that we have through the traditional knowledge that has been communicated to us. And the fundamentals of, when you go around Australia, of traditional knowledge and Aboriginal culture, the fundamental pillar of all the links is water and the waterways. So, while we're formally celebrating World Water Day for 30 years, now we can think that we have 80,000 years of direct and uninterrupted storylines that revolve around water. Wherever you go in this country, you go and you talk to Aboriginal people, they will talk to you about the importance and the emotional connection that they have with the waterways. Now, why am I going about this is first because it is customary for us at the University of Western Australia to acknowledge traditional owners of the land that I'm speaking from, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and to pay my respect and to their elders past and present and emerging. And I think we take lots of knowledge from our interaction with the culture. We take lots of knowledge for the early interaction that Australians have in the last, say, 200 years with water, and it has been, fundamentally to the prosperity of Australia. Water has been fundamental. I mean, I'm speaking from Western Australia, where we have a pipeline that has more than 100 years that actually made sure that Western Australia is on the map. Literally speaking, and it's a magnificent engineering intervention, so to speak, that happens many years ago. So we've been really connected socially, politically, culturally with water, but we find ourselves in a place globally that is not really enviable. And that's really, kind of strange because, and I think this is where we invite people to maybe make some comments or ask specific questions about why are we here. And I think on this celebration, I will try not to be negative. I'm usually not negative, but sometimes you wonder why, the access has been difficult. Now, we know there are some technical difficulties with getting water to some places, but, I would say the technical aspect isn't the main hurdle, so to speak. So, I'm a professor of engineering. I know that we can take water from any kind of, quality and bring it to the right quality and basically make it suitable for human consumption or make it suitable for all sorts of other uses. So what are some of the difficulties? And I think that's where it's important that people interacting with us, think about ways that the things that they can do in their everyday life to sort of accelerate, this access or this lag that perhaps has been slowed down a little bit with the COVID situation. We have noticed that there was a lot of supply chains that have been disrupted, interrupted during COVID time. And I think as we're emerging out of COVID time, things will be best. So I think it's only appropriate that the theme is about acceleration. So you can see behind me the clean water and sanitation, which is Sustainable Development Goals number 6. So this is the one we're talking about. This is the access to clean water, but access to sanitation, access to a toilet, access to period hygiene for girls. This is a really, really an issue that is still behind in lots of places, including Australia. And we need to be open to all the aspects of sanitation around us that actually kind of some of it is really challenging. So we have lots of remote communities as well in Australia that still not have the same access. But every day, most Australians wake up and directly, almost half asleep, into the shower. When you turn that shower on, it flows. That's probably the most magic moment where we need to think about connecting with what it means, what water means to us, as that water is actually going through and interacting with our body. It goes and connects with the ground, and it goes to the pipelines, and it basically joins the water cycle. So from the spiritual point of view, and again going to our traditional owners, it is about acknowledging that relationship that we have with the land and the waterways. And we should do that in a way. I mean, I like to sort of meditate in the shower. This is like my moment of quietness, but I reflect on the importance of water in my life. And I think from there, I go like, what can I do today, to ensure that there is access to water? Now, everyone, as you're showering every morning, knowing that to get your water in Western Australia alone, and Australia, you can multiply that by 10, there is about 4,000 engineers and operators and who are ensuring that you get that water flowing every morning. And there is more than 50,000 kilometers of pipeline that ensures that the water. So that's like going around the equator about 1.3 times. That's a long of pipes, etc. So as we are looking at, in the shower and thinking about water, we should think of that little girl who is 8 and who actually walks every day for 8 kilometers to fetch water for her family. This is a statistic from the United Nations, that today there is a young girl who is 8 who will skip school and go and walk 8 kilometers to fetch water for her family. Not a boy, a girl. So here we are in a situation where access is compromised, but education is also affected, because that little girl needs to be at school, because we know that the world is a better place when girls are educated. We know that. And we know that we're talking mostly about continent and countries where access to education and access to water is equally challenging. So, the luck, the privilege that we have in Australia should be basically allowing us to reflect on the global situation and try to do something about it. So, I can give you tons of examples. So we can think about water in our food and what we eat. That has an impact, because lots of the water in fact, the food that we eat every day is equivalent to between 3,000 and 5,000 liters of water to produce that dinner plate. Now, if we choose food that's not local, or if we choose to eat things not in season. That has a huge impact on that water food signature. And I think that's really important. But globally, when we also export food or import food, we are literally importing and exporting water, because a cucumber is 95% water, right? So if you move cucumbers around, you're moving lots of water. So what we're doing to the water cycle globally is we're like shifting it and moving it around. And we have done it so many times that lots of this water is either affected by pollution, we have access issues, we have difficulty in treating in some places because technology is not there. But these are the things that people should think about. And I think it's really interesting to reflect on the call to action, like positive things. So show of hands, how many of you out there, including us in the studio, think they have too many clothes at home? So think about that. There is actually a t-shirt is about 2,500 liters of water, one t-shirt. Jeans are 7,000 liters. So this is how much water we need to produce the cotton, how much water we need to do all the processing, all the colors, all the dyes, all of those things. So then we should think about giving another life to lots of the clothes. There's so much that you can do in terms of being stylish, but not having to buy new things. You can pass things, you can share, so there is this sort of a trend now where people are starting to look at the things they eat, because that's a big deal, but the things you wear, because these are the things that we make decisions on every day. No one gets involved in these decisions for us. We decide what to eat and we decide what to wear. And I think it's really important then to communicate that broadly. So I personally think that adopting the thinking around the Sustainable Development Goals is a really good way to see that every one of these goals that people are talking about, and by the way, if you're wondering, just look up Sustainable Development Goals. It's a United Nations initiative or framework that has since been adopted by countries and companies and whatever. And it is 17 goals that are interconnected. So I happen to teach a water engineering course. And with the help of the students, we found that every one of these 17 goals is actually connected to water or has some implication on water. So water is all across. Water is an indicator, access to water is an indicator of poverty. Access of water is leading to people going hungry every night. There's lots of them. Almost the same people who don't have access to water don't also have access to this kind of, health and well-being, and you can go on and on. And I just told you about education, for example, the link between hygiene and education. I had a student from Brazil once, and they told me that half of the primary schools in Brazil don't have running water and proper toilets. That's one of the biggest economies in the world, and yet the access is still struggling. So can you think of a position where a child doesn't have access to water at home, but don't even have access to water at school, or there is one tap for the whole school and not really proper access to a toilet, let alone things to do with personal hygiene and period is a big issue for young girls all around the world. How to manage period and go to school and all of that, when we have obviously there's lots of movements in number of countries around free access to period management things, like we have access to toilet paper. Why can't it be that we can have free access to pads and anything that people need? And I think people need to do something about this, because it really affects the stigma and the thing that some families have to choose between putting food on the table or buying period thing. It's really if people don't think about it, but there's literature. There's literature about this. There's papers. In particular, my colleague, Professor Danny Barrington out of UWA, published extensively on so-called period poverty, which is directly connected to water and sanitation. So, you know what to do. Yeah. So do we have any questions or comments? Or we're a bit too early for people? Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think the first one that we can do is think about our immediate, that's where we have the impact, our immediate circle. So the things that we do every day, the food that we eat, the clothes that we wear, giving second life to things is really, really directly connected to water. Because again, unfortunately, people think of water as just a tap, but water is the whole water cycle. And the water cycle is involved in everything that we do, even how we wash our car. So, for example, in Germany, there's a law against washing your car at home. People tell on you, if you're in Perth, people tell on you if you water your lawn on the wrong day, because we have restrictions, only 2 days to water your. But in Germany, they will tell on you if you're washing your car. What do you need to do? You need to take your car to the washing place that has a recycling system, and it makes sure that everything that's pollution that's coming out of your car is dealt with in a closed loop, as opposed to washing your car everywhere and then making sure that it's fixed. So there's so much, like everything that we do every day has some implication for water. I just told you, if you eat chocolate, for example, that's a good one to start. I am someone who likes to eat chocolate at 4 p.m. because I find it like this is chocolate o'clock for me. What do you think, Sam? Same?
Anytime is chocolate time.
Anytime is chocolate. I was shocked to find that chocolate is actually 24,000 liters for 1 kilo of chocolate. So I'm not saying you should stop eating chocolate. I'm just saying while you're eating your nice piece of good quality chocolate, that is, for me, high amount of black dark chocolate. That's my preference. Mm-hmm. As I have my piece, I go like, oh, this is so much water, So, it is not about like stopping yourself from doing things, but it is about reflecting and sharing those information. So our moms used to say to us, I'm old, but for those of you who are young, your mom would say, finish your dinner plate. That's the number one action, because food waste, as you know, we use so much water to produce food. And then if we take your half of your plate and you throw it in the bin, it's equivalent to throwing 1,500 liters of water in the bin, because your dinner plate is about 3,000 liters of water. So just think about that. So if you finish your plate, you're my friend. That's really the yeah. With climate change, there's likely going to be more major weather events like flooding. How do flood waters impact water supply? What can people do to stay safe after? Yeah, absolutely. This is a really, really important question. This goes to the idea that the water is the water is about a water cycle. And then one of the things that we did with our cities, as we develop cities, we ensure that our cities dry faster, because we have lots of surfaces that collects water now. So like our cities act like essentially like a funnel. So it collects water and it brings it to one location. And we did lots of drainage work to drain cities. However, as we develop urbanization is growing, we're finding it really hard to deal with, say, rain, flash floods, and rain that comes really intensely on some of the cities that cause flooding. So floods has been with us for as far as we can go. For maybe 4 billion years, there's known floods. From the history of geology, floods have been all around. They are not stopping, but we can manage them in a better way in some places by looking at improving the way we manage our cities and the way we design our cities, in a way we plan our cities to be more sort of water-centric planning. So to avoid flooding, there is also related to flooding, but indirectly is sea level rise as well, that can basically cause all sorts of consequences, and also intrusion of salt water into some of our inland because the depletion of groundwater. So all of that is kind of connected to flooding, but it's also one connection. So I go again to the principle that everything that we do is actually connected, and every one of our action. If someone says to you, this action is actually independent of water use, they will be lying to you. I'll give you one other example. 1 gigabyte of data is about 700 liters of water. Now, why would you say? This is interesting. Even using ChatGPT uses water. Why? Because all our interaction that we're having on the internet, we're downloading things, we're uploading, this information has to transit through so-called data centers. So if you're driving around your city or your town, you will find they're usually ugly buildings with no windows, with some name like data something. That's your local data center. They used to be, in the old days, in the neighborhoods, they used to have like exchange houses or exchange system centers. So now they are like not used because we moved to the digital telephony, right? So it's all run by the internet. But they used to be exchange, a building that looks like a house where all the cables for the whole neighborhood used to meet. Right? So there's a main cable that comes in there. So we changed that to these massive data centers that are so happening, transiting lots of information. So you can imagine your computer. When you touch your computer, it's hot. There is a heat that comes out of it. So if you have a big data center with big servers, they need to be cooled. And the way we cool this data center is by using water. Otherwise, they will fry. Literally, because it's just too much heat. And so every time you download, even when you use your phone, you find that if you download something, you touch your phone, or if you are on a phone call, your phone gets hot. So multiply that by millions and millions, and that's what your data centers need. So there's huge amount of water that goes into cooling data centers. So think about the usage of technology and all of that, if it's useful, because lots of people go like, I have unlimited data. Well, it costs me nothing to do more. Yeah, that's true. That's the flexibility. But think about, do you actually need it? Or sometimes I do that sometime myself. Instead of looking for a file, I download it again. Here are some examples that you can do. So if you find that there is something in the world that's not connected to water, you send me an email. You will be my friend, because I couldn't. Everything is connected to water. And we are all connected as humans to water. And I think we need to reflect on the importance of that emotional connection, and how we can do, how we can walk around our, on our land and observe what water does, and then think about people who don't have access and do something about it. Very, very easy. Doesn't require huge amount of investment per person, but if one person puts time to think about an action, it will have huge positive impact. So Rita says, I never realized it's probably because data is... look, lots of the big tech companies have been reluctant to share that data. So we have been pressuring them to come clean about. So lots of tech companies now are publishing their sustainability data, and one of it is their usage of water. It's huge. It's really, really huge, because it does require that, these systems go really hot, to the effect that if the cooling system fails, which, they're designed not to fail because there is always backups, etc. If they fail for a few minutes, the whole data center is gone. That's how effective, it is. So what are the impacts of agriculture and farming for water quality? How many hours do you have for this? This is a whole topic. We said food is really a big deal, right? So food, because 70%, roughly, that's the United Nations numbers, the World Food Organization, all of that, more than 70% of the water globally is used to produce food. Now, you can produce food with the same amount of water, but you can produce also good food with 70% less water. That's the difference that technology and what we call precision agriculture is providing today. And I think there's lots of countries have gone in this space. Like, give you an example, leading powerhouse in this space is the Netherlands, for example. Netherlands is a small country, right? Anyone knows the Netherlands? Yeah, small country. I was once in the Netherlands, took the wrong train, ended up in another country. It's that small. Is the second largest exporter of food in the world, only second to the US. Small country. They know how to deal with water, and they have developed precision agriculture so that they produce all sorts of water-hungry crop with 70% less water. So there was a time where we didn't think about how much water we use for a certain thing, but now you can actually, model. There's lots of waste that's going on in just pushing water to crop, and sometimes overwatering is not a good thing. So there is a big movement of transitioning to a new kind of agriculture, and that agriculture is less expensive in terms of space, but more extensive in terms of relationships. So agroforestry, there's lots of things that we're doing in Australia, starting to do, reducing the footprint of lots of monocrops, etc. Lots of thinking is going into improving on our sort of performance indicators, both from the fertilizer point of view. All of these things go hand in hand, right? Less water, less fertilizer, less mechanization, less this, less chemicals, less. That's where the trend is going. So the more something is struggling, the more a crop is struggling to grow, the more you need to put water and nutrients and medication and chemicals to fight diseases, etc. So we're going the wrong way. So the right way is less water, less chemicals, less intervention, and a product that is healthier, that is seasonal, that is local. That this is where people are starting to think. Taste is important. There are things that we have in our supermarkets that you wonder why. I mean, I know people get stressed if they walk into a supermarket and they don't find green capsicum and yellow capsicum and red capsicum. There is one purple capsicum as well. That's fun when you do stir fry because you have multiple colors. But I did the test and there is no difference in taste. So there are lots of things that so in Australia, in Western Australia, every second house, if not every house, has a lemon tree. But only these lemon trees don't have lemons maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. We import lemons from the US. Why? You can actually freeze lemons. Here's an action. Take lemons, put it in a cube, freeze it, or slice. You can actually dry it as well. Gin and tonic, beautiful. Straight for your afternoon. Look at the garden. Look at your backyard. Beautiful. Import a poor lemon all the way from the US. Is lemon an essential ingredient? People in their house, they have lemon in the front of the house. You can pick a lemon for free. You can steal it from the backyard too. So that gives you an example. Why? Because we can, right? Why do we import lemons? Because we can. But if people say, well, I'm not gonna buy the lemon that's waxed, that's been going on for in a plane or in a boat for all this time, I can just get a lemon from a tree that's not waxed, that doesn't have any chemicals in it. Boom, we can produce it. I'm pretty sure it's the same across Australia. There's lots of food that's actually urban food that you can go and find in your neighborhood. And that's sort of getting also children educated around food and where it comes from. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. There's lots of things that we can start talking about, and it makes for a really interesting dinner table discussion or afternoon teas, or make an afternoon tea with your friends and just use just the local instead of going like, what's the theme? We're just going to use local food. So if you're in Tasmania, beautiful food, so tasty, so tasty. Anything that grows there is tasty. I mean, that's same for Western Australia. South Australia, oh my God. The hills. It's just like you name it. You name it and it grows in Australia. And it's so tasty, local. So yeah, do afternoon teas with your colleagues and friends and network with only local produce. No imported lemons.
That's fantastic, Anas. It makes me feel better about my bush tucker obsession, I must say.
We should go sometime together to find some stuff. I've been exposed to so many interesting ingredients lately. So, and happy birthday, belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. It was my birthday yesterday, so I've made another cycle around the sun.
Yeah. So it's good. It's closer to World Water Day, so it's really a good way to celebrate.
Now, we do need to finish up, but I did have one more question come through, if you've got the time, Anas.
Yes, happy to.
All right, here's our final question.
Is there tracking of loss of water infiltration from development, degradation of landscape, aridification? Oh, yeah, huge. Loss of water is, let's look at the ones that we can easily quantify. Pipes that are for urban water. In some places up to 60% is lost, because there are places, I said, we have like this magnificent network of thousands and thousands of kilometers of pipeline. Well, some of them are 100 years old. Some of them, when people dig, they don't even find the pipe because it has been eaten by time. So, a big number. Infiltration is really, really, really a problem. Because the aging infrastructure that we have, some of it has been around forever, and they need some look. Now, infrastructure is hugely expensive, and that's why we're favoring more and more in Australia. In particular, we're favoring densification, and less expansion, less urban sprawl, because urban sprawl will just make it like not workable in the long run to have new infrastructure for every development, because we have to fix the old infrastructure. And that's something that we built 30 years ago, 40 years ago, even up to 100. There's sometimes pipes that are still wooden pipes in some sections, and there is no digital model for everything that was put in the ground for like 100 years. Now, these days, we can plan and draw and whatever, but now sometimes we just have to go and find things. So it's a huge one. So certainly degradation, loss of biodiversity, because, again, plants, everything is connected. Plants work with water. Water works with plants. Plants are part of the water cycle. So if you remove plants, you change the water table dynamics. You cause salinization in lots of places in Australia, because the clearing ensures that the water table goes up, because trees push the water table down, because they suck on the water table and they make it stay at the bottom. Now we have salt that accumulating in the topsoil part. If you release that water to the up, then the salt is released, and that's where it kills lots of growth, lots of vegetation as well. So, we really need to rethink the connectivities and the interconnections that we have between things. That's really something that everyone needs to start thinking. And local is important. So lots of people go like, oh, is this at the scale of my state or my city or whatever? No. Local interventions also worth it. local government can do a lot. So go to your local government, have those conversations about the actions that, even groundwater recharge locally for parks and green infrastructure to ensure that we maintain by the revegetation, riparian zones in around wetlands and wetlands, really important, because they are, like the dynamic element. Also, because now everyone is talking about decarbonization. Well, I'm saying don't decarbonize, recarbonize the wetland, put more carbon into the wetland systems and the waterways. That's our way forward to fight climate change. So there's lots of solutions that you don't see people talking about because they are, in their view, holistic, but everything is holistic. Everything is connected, right?
Fantastic. That's been great. You've given a lot of food for thought, right down to how many clothes I have in my wardrobe, which I admit is far too many. We're going to stop questions there. Thank you, everyone who joined us. We will be making a recording of this video, which will be available on the EHA YouTube channel in the next few days. So if you know someone that would have been interested and wasn't able to join us today, please keep an eye on our social media channels, and we'll be sharing a link to that video shortly. Also, if anyone had any further questions for Anas, please feel free to email EHA, or my personal email for EHA is samantha.smith@eh.org.au. I would be more than happy to pass on any questions you may have had that you couldn't ask today. That's all for today's live chat. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Anas, for a very—
It was great. Thank you so much, Samantha. It was really great and, beautiful setup. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. We'll see you for our next live chat.